Welcome to the AI Brothers podcast. We are two brothers who have been discussing technology since we were kids and have decided to include you in these conversations.
We will cut through the noise to bring you data and research on the latest developments on AI. We are not interested in hype. We bring you the signal to keep you on top of this new technological and industrial revolution.
Because AI will permeate everything and be everywhere, initially as a layer on top of existing systems and then becoming itself the operating system.
Today is huge. We just hit a milestone in the AI world. Open source has overtaken closed source in large language model performance for the first time. The new Kimi K2 Thinking model from Moonshot is now at the top of the AI model intelligence benchmark. It has registered almost 180,000 downloads in just 2 weeks since it has been posted on Hugging Face.
Yes. And already there are so many questions that we need to talk about, because really we got to a point where every few months there's a new model, there's a new claim that says, okay, we just change everything. So we really need to discuss what this new release means, how meaningful it is it just a hype on top of another hype?
This is a different, not just because of the scores, but because of what this scores imply.
Okay. Let's slow down. I can feel you buzzing. I can feel that you're very excited about this new model. But I think let's just set the context first, and let's explain to folks. Let's take a bit of time to explain to folks what's the difference between open and closed models. So let's talk about that first.
So let's start with the open source models like Llama 3, Llama 4, Qwen, DeepSeek, Kimi K2, and Mistral. In the open source models, the authors publish how the models were trained and how they were designed. You can download them, modify them, you can inspect them. They tend to be cheaper to run as well. They are great for research and for people who want to keep data on their own server, like B2B. Yes, the open source is mainly designed for B2B.
Okay, so that's all the great stuff. What are the downsides of an open source model?
Well, the downside is that you are on your own. You have to have the capacity to host and secure your system. Although there are new provider, the hosting system, business of open source model and providing security.
But the other thing, a lot of people hear about that classically the open source model tend to be less performant than the closed source model.
Well, it used to be. Now with the open source model like Kimi K2, this is a really different situation,
Okay, I can feel like you're excited to just get on and talk about Kimi K2 Thinking. But again, let's just take a little moment and talk also about the open source models. About the closed source model. Yeah. Let's talk about the closed source model.
The closed source model, we all know them. They are the one we all heard about, like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and this name suggests they are cloud. They have been made and only used through. You can only use them through the API. They are easy to use. They have enterprise support, but are also more expensive, and most importantly, they are really opaque. We don't really know how they work, what they are made of,
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think maybe also just to, before getting deeper, let's explain why, what does it mean to be expensive? So the fundamental unit of these large language models are tokens. So tokens are basically small chunks of data, of text. They're not necessarily a word, they're just a small chunk of text. So a word could be made of multiple tokens. the concept of token is important because that's where that's how you measure how much data was used to train the model. So you'll hear 15 trillion, 60 trillion tokens. So this is how much data went in. But then later on, when it comes to the use, it's also critical because token is the unit to measure the input information and the output generated by the LLM, and there is a cost associated to the tokens that in the input and the output, and it's usually dollars per million of token. And in that context, open source models tend to be cheaper.
Yes, open source model can be 10 to 100 times cheaper than closed models because they implement more efficient architectures, like more efficient mixture of experts, you know?
Yeah. So okay, now let's go back to the benchmark and let's talk about Kimi K2 Thinking. Okay, so let's talk about the benchmark. I've always been quite skeptical about these benchmark because initially when you read the benchmark, you could clearly see that there is one model that's so much more powerful than the other ones, and when you went to use it, you could feel the difference. But now it seems that everybody is so close to each other, and as a final user, I could barely feel the difference between these different models.
Well, that's true. There is a point where performance becomes so high that the gap is negligible for daily tasks. You know, between top models from closed source companies and open source one like Kimi K2 Thinking, the difference is hardly visible unless you are doing hardcore reasoning stuff, you know? So deciding factor shift. The cost, the efficiency, and most importantly, whether the model is open or closed.
Yeah. So this is sort of the point of this episode is that, and that's what the reason why a lot of people are getting excited about Kimi K2 Thinking is its nature, its open source nature. And until recently, open models lagged behind when it comes to these benchmarks. Usually they've been 3 to 6 months behind the leaders, and in AI model 3 to 6 months is huge, but it's about to change, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. This is why Kimi K2 Thinking is just really shocking. It's open, it's cheap to run, and it is lightweight enough for people to load and trim a version on consumer hardware. It is beating every closed frontier model on the hardest test we have.
So this is actually the thing where I'm a bit confused, is how does an open source model made such a jump like this?
Well, it's not sudden. Open source models have gained adoption for more than a year. More and more people are using open source AI models. When the business open models is also the cheapest and the easiest to deploy, you can create an ecosystem. Companies build on top of it. Government adopts it. Developers teach themselves how to fine tune it. The lock-in effect flip sides. For example, Cursor is starting to use open source model instead of closed source one. For example,
No, you're right. Actually, I was listening recently to a podcast for the All In podcast, and when they called themselves the besties, one of them, Chamath, was talking about how in his company they are using open source models for coding, and these are, as we said in the beginning, so these are open source model that are hosted by US based providers. So this is also something critical to mention, is the other power of open source models. So when you think of, competition between countries and providers, when you create an open source model, somebody could take the model, host it in their own servers, and they're completely independent from whoever generated it. So they provide the security, they provide the service. So this is also the reason why these models are deployed and are accelerating. And it's also kind of the history of computing, where open source models have always gained the upper hand over closed source models. And at the beginning of this AI revolution, people still had the debate because, I mean, remember, Llama didn't do as good as expected. People had the debate of, oh, will open source really beat closed source on this one? But it looks like it might actually change on this one. All right. So the one key concept that has been thrown around regarding Kimi K2 is the concept of interleaf reasoning. So I think we really need to explain this. What does this concept mean? Because there are a lot of bad descriptions online.
Yes, this is really crucial with Kimi K2. Simple version. The traditional reasoning model think everything in one go. They generate a long internal chain of logic before producing an answer. If one early assumption is wrong, the whole chain collapses.
Yeah, it's a bit like, when you listen to the conspiracy theorists online, and especially the funny ones. You start from a wrong reasoning to begin with, and you just go on, and everything is wrong. But the first step in the reasoning is wrong. So every step might be logical, but if the first steps of the reasoning is wrong, the whole theory is flawed.
Right. Now, interleaf reasoning works differently. Instead of front-loading all the thinking, the model alternates between small reasoning steps and partial outputs. Thinking, writing again, until it arrives at the final conclusion.
Yeah, so basically it's not like just one big chain that's being generated. It breaks it down into smaller steps, and it ensures that every small step is correct.
Yes, and because each step influences the next, the model corrects itself as it goes. That makes it useful for agents' tasks, where the model needs to call tools, retrieve information, and then adapts its plan.
And also, I actually, when you look around, I see this. Keep seeing this confusion about whether those reasoning traces persist across turns in a conversation.
Yes, that's the key point. A turn is one full interaction. Inside that turn, the reasoning step persists. They do not persist across the entire conversation, only within the one turn. It works like a scratch pad that lasts until the task is complete.
And that's actually that's also highlights the ingenuity of this model, because when you get to these complicating reasoning architecture, adjusting the reward function becomes actually complicated.
Yes, it is. Rewarding each step individually made the model short-term chase wins that did not help the final answer. Moonshot changed the reward system so that the only steps that improve the final result get rewarded. This is where the gain comes from.
Yeah. And actually, so the right now the big benchmark that every model is going after is what's called humanity's last exam. And actually, I actually went at some point, when I remember a few months ago, I went and looked at the questions on humanity's last exam, and I invite everyone to actually go and test themselves on these questions. And I can tell you, these are really hard questions. I mean, I looked at them. I couldn't do the math, and I focused on the biology ones, the one in my field, and they're really, really hard. So that's why everyone making these models is now going for humanity's last exam as sort of the gold standard of benchmarks.
That's a notoriously difficult test created to probe reasoning abilities at a doctoral level. Kimi K2 Thinking also hit the top score on the TAS square benchmark. It beats every frontier model from closed source companies.
Yeah, and actually, the other thing that's critical, and we mentioned it at the beginning, is that this model is not only powerful; it can be powerful in a INT4 version. So just to explain to people, so the parameters of the model are stored in these weights. So the way these models are trained, so that you take the model, you train it on a large amount of data, and then you adjust the weights so that you can train it to reason through this data. These weights, the bigger they are, the better the picture of the model will be. So if you have floating point 16, for instance, means you're taking the entirety of the weights, and so you're able to reproduce more faithfully the model. Here, actually, you're even in an INT4 quantized version, which is a very small sort of picture of these weights, you're still able to perform very well on a difficult test. And that's super impressive.
Yes, exactly. It's a huge flex because quantized model usually lost their accuracy, but they made it work through quantization. Aware training. It means the model was trained with quantization in mind instead of being just compressed at the last step.
And that's again, like, these are the reasons why, when you look at how the models is made, it's just such a beautiful design. But also you need to talk, like, how does it affect the size of the model?
Yes, it affects the size dramatically. A 1 trillion parameter model using standard 16-bit floating point weighs around 2 terabytes, but with the ENT4 version, it is tiny, really, really tiny, combined with a much more efficient mixture of experts that activate only 32 billion parameters per token, and you get a model that is surprisingly affordable to run. Very, very, very efficient,
Yes, and that's basically, it means that now you can run it in personal machines, and the cost are more affordable. We're not talking about giant servers anymore to do inference. It's just, you get all that power in a smaller setup.
True, it's not quite plug and play for everyone, but the fact that the top model in the world can now even consider to be local is amazing,
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm when I saw the benchmarks and I saw the design, I have to say, I got sold to Kimi K2 Thinking, and clearly the hype seems real. But let's take a moment and let me be the devil's advocate here. We go through so many hype cycles. Are we looking at just another moment that will fade in 3 to 4 months or whatever?
I think this one will stick, because it challenges the idea that proprietary giant will always lead. If one open source model is good enough and cheap enough, company will not need to rely on closed APIs,
Or maybe they will keep both. You'll have one for safety, privacy that you will host on your own, and you have another one for cutting edge performance, right?
Yeah, maybe, but the bigger trend is decentralization. People want control. They want the ability to customize. Kimi K2 Thinking give them that without sacrificing the capability. Closed source model will mainly only use for B2C, not B2B.
And obviously, when we talk about these, the propagation of these models and models being able to be, you can get into a point where you can run these models locally. There's always this issue that people bring back, which is safety. So how can we think about safety in the context of these open source models spreading around quickly?
That's a real concern, but I believe a transparent model actually helps. When people can study the architecture and understand the reasoning process, you can get more eyes on it for safety.
So if you had to place a bet, what happens next? Are frontier model going to still lead the way? Are open source model going to cause problems? Are we going to see government stepping in? What's going to happen? What do you think is going to happen in the future?
I think we are entering in an era when acceleration is relentless. Traditional reasoning, interleaf reasoning, maybe hybrid approaches next year. Context window will keep growing. Tools use is becoming standard. The real race might shift from raw IQ to cost per token to trust, Kimi K2 Thinking can handle hundreds of sequential tools calls. This is a major advantage for AI agent workflows. Expected more innovation in that space soon. Kimi K2 team even changed the name of AI. Now say that AI now don't mean artificial intelligence, but actually mean agentic intelligence.
You sound very excited about this technology. I think you're always quite excited about AI, but you're particularly excited about this. You've always been very excited about open source. So this one, I'm sure, is very close to your heart.
Yes, I am. It is the first time in years that the landscape feels truly open again. No single company can own the future.
I am usually skeptical by nature, but this one really feels like a turning point. And in our introduction, we say that AI will be a layer on top of other system until it becomes the operating system itself. And when we think of AI being the layer on top of every system, open source model that provide power at a reasonable cost are the things that are going to enable that future.
Yes, that's the spirit, man. Healthy doubt mixed with genuine curiosity.
Okay, so we're gonna wrap it here. Thank you for joining us. We will see how this story evolve, because if the last few weeks taught us anything, is that tomorrow will always bring a new surprise.
And we always be there to talk about it.
Thank you very much.